Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Welcome to Ask Rob and Rob. If you listened to the show before, then you can take the next 20 seconds off. If you haven't, then this is the show where we answer property-related questions from two listeners who've kindly sent them our way. We do it every single Tuesday. We've done it over 250 times, and today is going to be no different. Really looking forward to getting into today's questions, but before we do, you might have your own. And if you do, here's how to send it over.
Yeah, please do by calling in on 013 808 00035. You can leave us a voicemail there. We won't answer ourselves. Or you can go to propertyhub.net/ask. A super simple process, one that Joe has followed to a T.
Hello, Rob and Rob. First, I want to say thank you for the podcast and the books. I think they're fantastic and I use them for reference quite often. Anyway, I feel I'm in quite an unusual position as my first purchase was actually a buy-to-let property. I'm now in the process of buying my own home, and I feel that it's a good price because it does need some renovations doing. It's at the back of my mind, and dependent on work, once the world starts going back to normal, I may actually relocate. If I was to relocate, what would my options be? I know the first option would be to simply sell, but what would my second option be? I guess I'm thinking maybe can I remortgage as a buy-to-let? I presume is okay if the market is doing well, because any capital appreciation will help towards the LTV. However, my main concern is, what if the pandemic makes the market drop and I end up in negative equity? Would that then leave me unable to remortgage and I just simply have to cut my losses and sell? Anyway, what's your thoughts on this, please? And also, do you think maybe I should have waited until the market is a bit more stable until I made a purchase? I'm looking forward to your response, and once again, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Really interesting question. So let's say that you do buy the property as your home. Then you do decide in a year's time that you want to relocate, but the value of the property has fallen. What could you do in that situation? Well, you're probably not going to be able to remortgage it as a buy-to-let because you're unlikely to have enough equity. I don't know the size of the deposit that you're putting in, but let's assume it's somewhere around 10 or 15%, which is fairly typical for a residential mortgage. Most buy-to-let mortgages require a deposit of at least 20%. So if the value of the property has fallen, you either won't be able to do that or you'll need to chunk in some more of your own cash to top it up to be able to hit that loan to value. Even if the market has stayed the same, you might not be able to do that because, again, the deposit size that you need for a buy-to-let mortgage is higher. However, you did say that work needed to be done to the property, so it's possible that in either of those cases, the flat market or the falling market, the value that you've added through doing that work has increased the value, so you would be okay either way. The good news, though, is that you do have another option, another short-term option at least, which is keeping the same mortgage but applying for consent to let. That basically means that it's still a residential mortgage, but the lender has said that they're okay with you renting the property out as a buy-to-let for a defined period of time. So often they'll agree to it for a year, then we'll decide at the end of that year whether they're happy to extend it or not. What that does is it keeps your rate, although sometimes there's a fee or they'll boost the rate slightly. It keeps everything as it is, and it means that you can put a tenant in there, you can go off and do what you want, and you can keep the mortgage being paid with the rental income from that property. Why would a lender agree to that? Well, because frankly, they don't want to repossess properties. They don't want you to get into trouble. They just want the mortgage to be paid. So if they think that the best way of the mortgage getting paid is to give you that consent, then they will do so. So there is an option for you. A broader point that I'd bring in here is I always find it strange when people say, I'm buying my own home, but what if I want to move in a year or two because I'm thinking that I might want to relocate for work? And I think if you might want to move in a year or two, you probably shouldn't be buying your own home to live in. I understand the desire to have that security and the desire to be building equity if you think the market's going up. But the costs associated with doing that and the stress of doing that and the lack of flexibility it gives you, the problems it can cause you when you do want to move, to me, just don't make that an appealing prospect. I can also understand it more if you think the market is going to go up and the increase in value you're going to get is going to outweigh the costs and make the stress worthwhile. But if you're concerned about the market going down, then I just don't see the logic. So Joe, I don't know anything about your particular set of circumstances. I'm sure you've got your reasons that do make this the right option for you. But I just bring it up as a general point for anyone else listening, because I think there can be this default attitude of, oh, I really must buy my own home. Renting is a far inferior option. But if you are unsure about where you're going to be after the next few years, then maybe owning isn't the best choice for you. So that's a bit of a tangent, but hopefully one that'd be interesting for one or two people. But Joe, in your case, yes, it is a situation you've got to be careful with, but hopefully the option I've given you today will make you feel a little bit more reassured.
Thank you, Joe. Next up, we've got a question in from Sassi.
Hi, Rob and Rob. My name is Sassi and I'm calling from the East Midlands. I've been listening for years now while saving up with my partner. We're both working professionals working within the construction industry. Before lockdown, we agreed to purchase a property. We had some trouble with mortgages because of the condition of the house. We were first accepted for a mortgage, but then when that expired 6 months later and it was revalued, we were declined a mortgage because the valuation said the property would be more suited to a HMO, which I've never heard of, and I'd be interested to know if you've heard of that before either. It's not currently a HMO, it's a family home. Given the current circumstances, it's difficult for us to get a first-time buyer's mortgage, especially when they're not doing 95% loan to value. It means that everything we've saved up isn't enough and we'll have to borrow money to go forward unless they bring back high loan to value mortgages. And I just want to know if you believe that the stamp duty holiday will restore the bank's confidence enough to bring back the high loan to value mortgages in the near future. I'd love to hear your input on where you think things are going in that manner. I know it's a bit hard to tell because we don't know how much unemployment's going to occur in the next few months, but I would love your input on it. Thank you.
Sassi, the mortgage market over the last few months has been a really weird one, a really strange one. And that's because of two main reasons. One, an obvious one, COVID. And that's made developers a little bit nervous or tried to assess things in a different way. But the second reason actually has been the strong demand. And the two together have made things really challenging. And that's because the mortgage market pretty much shut down like everybody else when COVID kicked off. But then when COVID eased off and people could buy property again, and then we had the stamp duty changes, then the market accelerated. But the mortgage companies weren't ready. And it seems that because they weren't ready, and because of the perceived risk of the current environment, they've been very picky about who they lend to, because they've only got so much capacity. And that's meant that you and many others have been scratching their heads over some crazy decisions over the last few months. Now, maybe in your particular circumstance, the HMO comment is fair, who knows? But it wouldn't surprise me if it was a bit of nonsense, because I've seen a lot of nonsense over the last few months. So what does the future hold? If the market continues to go from strength to strength, then the lenders out there will go, I want a bit more of that pie. And suddenly the parameters required to access lending change. So the level of loan to value you can get and the rates you can get at the higher amounts will come back into the market. How quickly this will happen is hard to say. But if the market remains strong, I'm confident enough to say it will happen. I just don't know how long it will take. None of us do. But the good news is it will happen. Obviously, if the market weakens and goes the other way, then lenders may entrench in their current position for the foreseeable. But history shows us that when the market pushes on, lenders push on as well, because they don't want to miss out. They want their piece of the pie. They want their profits. Remember, they make money by lending. And sitting back on capital, watching other rivals lend to you and I, is not something they're going to do. So competition drives rates down and the loan to values up, and also removes the majority of the silly decisions. So Sassi, although I can't give you a firm timeline, I can give you an idea of what to expect if different scenarios play out. So I appreciate that probably doesn't leave your frustration for today and the crazy decisions you've had to live through, but hopefully it gives you hope for the future.
Yeah, good luck, Sassi. That is a tough situation, and you're not the only one suffering from the mortgage market right now. So I hope that does resolve in the way you need it to. But thank you for sending in your question. Thank you to Joe as well, and thank you to you for listening. We will see you again on Thursday for the Property Podcast. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.